What's up, everybody? So it's been about a month since I've been able to work on this Volkswagen, and been working on my brother's little RAV4. You can see up there, I just posted a video about it. But I'm gonna get back to work on this Volkswagen because I want to continue getting the chassis completed so that I can put the body back on it, because there's a strong possibility I will have to sell my house due to the divorce. So I got to get this car mobile so that if I need to move it and take it up to Rusty's, I can. So I'm going to go ahead and show y'all how I'm going to do the front air ride and get it installed, and then probably do the rear wheel bearings and at least get it to where I can put the wheels back on it. And once I get the wheels back on it, probably roll it up front and get the body set back on it and just leave it like that until I know what's going on with the divorce. I still have another 2 weeks until I go to court for it. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I need to be prepared for whatever is going to happen. So this is the route that I'm going to take. So I'm going to go ahead and get this, get the wheels, get all four wheels back onto the vehicle, get the front air ride installed. Now I don't have the air management to put on here yet, so when I put the wheels on it, it's going to be slammed. But it is what it is. At least it'll roll. So I've got new wheel bearings for the rear, got the full front air ride suspension. I do not have new brakes for the front of the rear. So I'm just gonna have to put the old stuff back on here just so that I can get it to wheel around. But I'll show you what I'm gonna do. All right, guys, I apologize for the noise in the background. That's my AC compressor running outside. Nothing I can do about it. It's pretty hot here. But this is a new bearing kit that I bought for the Beetle. Came with new seals, and then new seals, cotter pins, and everything that's associated with the rear wheels. So this is where I keep in the old parts when I tore it apart. Comes in handy because these bearings are basically the same size, but they're different styles of bearings. And just comparing it to the way that the car came apart, the front wheel bearing, or the outer bearing, is one that is just a standard roller bearing, and the center sleeve can actually slide out. You can see it moving back and forth. That center sleeve will fall all the way out if you're not careful. This one is a sealed bearing, not sealed, but a captured bearing, roller bearing. This is got ball bearings in it, and this one is just rollers. So it is, to my knowledge, it's very important to put these in the correct locations because of the way that the bearings are designed. I also believe the inner diameter is a little bit different from inner and outer, but I'm not 100% certain. I haven't taken a caliper to measure them. But with that being said, this bearing is the one that goes in inside towards the transmission. This is the one that goes outside towards the wheel. I'm going to go ahead and start putting the bearings in here. I'm going to pack them with grease before I put them in. I'm going to clean this old spacer. I was going to buy new spacers, but there's nothing wrong with this spacer, so I'm going to just reuse it. So I'm going to clean it up and then put fresh grease on it when I go to put it into the wheel assembly. Now to do these, to put grease in these bearings, I'm just using a regular multi-purpose axle grease. You can use whatever grease you prefer. I'm not doing anything super significant with it, so I'm just using some regular axle grease. But what you want to do, basically just take your grease and get it down into the crevices, force it down into the bearing. You really need to do this with clean hands so you don't get any dirt inside the bearing. And don't worry about overfilling it, because whatever grease you put in here that doesn't stay in here will go into where the spacer is and will fill the chamber where the spacer is. So just, you can see I still have a couple bare spots, so we'll just get some grease down inside of those. You basically want to try and get it to go down into the bearing when you're getting it in there. So now that that one is filled with grease, I'll go ahead and set it in the rear axle. All right, so what I typically try to do is get a socket that's the same size as the bearing. This one happens to be a 1 13/16 socket. I don't expect everybody to have these sizes. I've got them because of my job for doing machine tools. But essentially you want to get something that's the same size as the bearing and then knock the bearing in until it hits the hard stop. Now that it's at the hard stop, yeah, it's all the way up to the hard stop. So now I can go ahead and put, at least I think it is. No, I got to go a little bit deeper so that I can get the snap ring in there. So you got to get it in far enough for the snap ring to fit. That might get it. Yeah, that's all the way in. So now I can put the snap ring in there and hold the bearing in place. All right, so I've got the snap ring in there now. All I need to do now is just make sure that it's seated all the way in there. So I'll take a long flathead screwdriver and just tap it. Make sure that it's popped into the groove that is provided for it. And it appears to be fully seated now. Alright, we're good to go. So now that the snap ring's completely seated, now I can go ahead and put the rear oil seal in here, or grease seal, whatever you want to call it. And once I get the rear grease seal in here, I can put the rear spacer in here, and then I'm ready to start assembling from the front. So this should be the rear oil seal. Yeah. So this is the rear grease seal. And this just gets pressed in right here. I'm going to use the same method using the socket that I was using to drive the bearing in to drive the grease seal in. Just line it up. Now the grease seal is in there, and make sure it's flush all the way around. Alright, yep, looks good to me. Alright, so now that the grease seal's in there, we're going to go ahead and put this rear spacer back in there. Alright, so the spacer's got a beveled edge to it. The beveled edge goes towards the back of the spindle. So it goes like that. Then the whole spindle can get slid in there. I'm not going to slide the spindle in there yet because I want to put the front bearings on it. But I'm going to go ahead and put the spacer in. Like I said, the bevel side needs to go towards the transmission side. We just set that joker in there and it's ready to go. Alright, now I'm ready to put the center spacer in here. Let's grease off after you get it into the car. So then we're going to just slide this in here. Hell, I actually think I'm going to put a shit ton of grease in here. Just in case there's any shit that wants to break loose. I mean, I've wiped this out quite a few times, but just as a precaution, I like to put a little layer of grease in here. Plus it'll help hold it in the center. When I'm going to put the spindle in. So now we just set that in there. You can, if you want to, put the spindle in to where it's sitting through the spacer just to hold it in the center while you're driving the front bearing in. But it's not necessary. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here in just a second, because I'm going to do that just to show you. You can take the spindle and actually set it in here to hold that in the center. That way when you put your front bearing on and push it in, it's holding it in the center. You don't have to fight it so bad when you're putting the spindle in. So now that we're at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get the front bearing ready. Same thing with the front bearing. We're just going to fill it with grease. Same exact way. Just push it down into the freaking bearing grooves. And then after you get grease all the way down into the bearing, then we're going to roll the bearing to get the grease to cycle through, and then we'll repack it again. And this is messy as hell, so just take your time and be patient with it. But now that that's done, we can slide the front bearing in here. Same process as on the back. Drive it in and use something that's as close to the same diameter as the bearing as you can, so that you don't get it in there crooked. Now, if you get it in there crooked, you can tap on the side that's sticking out a little bit further than the other sides, and it'll straighten itself up. And once you get it straight, you can drive it back in. Typically, when I start doing these, I'll start them with just putting my hand on one side and tapping it in until I get it to start. And just keep working around the corners until I can get it to where it's sitting in there on its own. I need to take these bolts and get them out of my way. Well, shit. Didn't mean to do that. I can't get that one to break loose. Alright, anyway. I'll get it out after I knock the bearing in. So now you just alright, that bearing is solid now. Now we can push the spindle the rest of the way through. Maybe. Oh, come on, you gonna make me a liar? This should go through really easy. I don't know why it's fighting me. And there went the freaking center of the damn bearing. There we go. Now I gotta wipe the fucking bearing off because it fell out. Fun times, fun times. The joys of working outside doing this crap. There's the spacer for the front. Go ahead and clean it off. And it too has a beveled side. And the beveled side goes towards the transmission side. So I'll show you as soon as I finish cleaning it. So it'd probably be hard to see, but it's got a bevel on here. That side goes towards the transmission. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to tear these apart and paint them, so they're not going to be painted. I'll paint them at a later date. But you got that O-ring. You got an oil seal in here that needs to be knocked out. So I'm going to knock the oil seal out of here. And then you've got the paper gaskets that go on there, the O-ring, and the new oil seal. And then looks like it's got another O-ring, but I don't remember taking that off the old car or off of the old stuff. So not exactly certain what the deal is with that. I may have to go look in my book and see what the hell that's for, because that wasn't on the car when I took it apart. I guess I'll find out here in a minute, but that's everything that came in the kit. So you got a new oil seal or grease seal, washer, and an O-ring that I don't remember removing from this when I took it apart. Another O-ring for the front cover, and then 2 paper gaskets for the front cover, and then a new cotter pin. So I'm going to drive this old grease seal out of here and clean this up and get it ready to put the new oil seal in and the new O-ring, and then I'll pick back up. Alright, so I've got the whole wheel assembly back together on this side. Put both paper gaskets in here. O-ring goes, the big O-ring goes around the back side of the spindle or the rear control arm. And then this just bolts in over top of it. Now I really hate that none of this stuff's painted, but like I said, I got to get this back to where it's rolling in case I got to sell this house and I can move the car. So I'm not putting any brakes on here. I'm just putting the brake backing plate and the drum on here so that I can bolt the wheels on here, but I'm not going to put any brake shoes in here or any of the springs or anything, so I'll cover that when I actually rebuild the rear end. Right now I'm just trying to get it rolling. All right, so I got both of the rear wheels back together. They both spin pretty easy. This one sounds a little weird because of the parking brake cable is hitting the drum, but it spins really easy. Obviously, like I said, this is not the way it's staying. I'm just trying to get this thing to where I can roll it around so that I can put the body back on it because of my divorce. So I was going to start working on doing the front air ride, but as you can see from the raindrops, it's starting to rain. So I may have to hold off on that for a little bit. So once I pick back up, I'll be putting the front air ride together. All right, now if you don't have new control arms, or if you don't get control arms that are already pre-done from Airkewld, you'll have to knock this little cap out of the end of all 4 of your control arms. So all I did, I'm using this old brake rotor that's no good. It was warped, so it got taken off the car. But just using it to hold that, and then using a long extension, or you can use a piece of bar or anything that you've got, stick it down in there and then hammer the cap out, and it comes right out. It's actually very easy. So I'm gonna hammer all 4 of these caps out, and I'll pick up after I've got them all removed. Now the instructions call for 1 of these Delrin bushings on each one of the control arms. So once you get the end cap knocked out, go ahead and put the Delrin bushing on, slide your 2 control arms in, don't put the other 2 in. Then we got to get the through rods that go through here. They need to either be Loctited together, or you can put some tack welds on them. I'm going to tack weld them because I don't have any Loctite. If I had Loctite, I'd just use Loctite. All right, I went ahead and tried to throw this together pretty quick because it's starting to rain. But when you do the washers and the bearing here, it goes washer, bearing, washer, and then a nut and a nut on every one of them. So I'll back this one off so you can see what I'm talking about. Now I don't have this adjusted yet. I've just been throwing it together so that I can just see how everything goes. But there's 1 washer, and then in behind there you'll see a bearing, and then behind that bearing is another washer. So just washer, bearing, washer, run your 2 jam nuts down, And then what it says to do is tighten these down until it locks the control arm down and then back them off. I'm not gonna do that right now because I still have to put the spindles in and because it's starting to rain. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover this thing up and I'll pick back up on it later. All right guys, so that's gonna do it for this video. I wound up leaving my house and coming over here to my parents' house for a little bit, spend some time with my parents, let my kids spend some time with my parents. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. I know I didn't complete the front air ride install, but I'll pick up on it next week. Should be able to get the front air ride completely installed and get the car back on all four wheels, and then take it to where I can get the body put back onto the chassis. In the meantime, I actually have started working on a 1UZ swap in the Lexus. I've already got half of the video done. We've got the transmission bolted up to the engine, got everything pre-fit. Hoping to be able to set that engine into the car next weekend. So that'll probably be my next video that I release after this one. Will be a 1UZ swap update because we're making really good progress on that car. I just don't have enough to post a video on it yet. So like always, if you like what I showed in this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, let your friends see what I'm doing, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks, have a great one.